Welcome back, guys. Super excited moving forward. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about what is ITIL 4, not only just what it means, but also the difference between version 3 and version 4. So if you're coming from an ITIL background, you would probably know this already, but if not, then more importantly, in this lesson, you will learn the differences between different ITIL methodologies, or version 3 and version 4 to be more specific. So what is really ITIL 4? The abbreviation ITIL is basically Information Technology Infrastructure Library. So that's the acronym for ITIL. So the ITSM relates a set of best practices to this. What it does is simply focuses on taking your IT services with the needs of your business. Whichever organization you work for certainly is in the business to make some profits. And the goals of the organization must be aligned with the back-end IT services. Because IT itself forms the very backbone of where the business rests. And it has become more and more important in the upcoming exponentially growing cloud computing area. And we see these days companies are adopting and adapting to these methodologies and framework. So the goal of the ITIL is taking the IT services and simply aligning them with the actual business processes. The objective was to primarily develop an effective method for all of these IT services. That is simply creating a catalog of best practices. So what essentially is happening is you're going to take all of your IT services, you're going to catalog those IT services, and then align them with your business services and goals of the organization. And during so, you create several processes so that you can gain operational efficiency. ITIL 4 is the most recent release, which is back in February of this year. So people typically say it's a minor update, but it's a different methodology. So I'm going to talk about in depth as we move forward, and of course other concepts such as DevOps, Agile, Lean, moving along with a set of best practices, and how these various methodologies can be implemented within your organizations. I'm also going to talk about different trends as being gained and implemented by various enterprise companies. So what's new in ITIL 4? Let's talk about that first. ITIL 4 expands on previous editions, and it takes a more holistic approach. In other words, it's going away from the processes. There's a new book, ITIL Foundation, that I'll put a link to it. You can take a look at that if you're interested in learning more about ITIL Foundation, about history of ITIL and how it works and what it looks like and the way it integrates with DevOps. I'm also going to include several resources you can download from the resource area. So that will be a good way to actually take a look at and understand more about ITIL methodologies. The focus here is on service management principles, concepts, rather than processes. And this is important by far, is one of the major differences between the previous versions of ITIL 3 to ITIL version 4. So ITIL 3 was primarily involved in maintaining processes. The focus was processes. But ITIL 4 talks more about the focus has shifted. Rather than just focusing on processes, but it shifted to more towards principles, concepts, and practices. And this gives these service providers a lot more freedom to design tailor-made processes accordingly. So you see the paradigm shift, right, from version 3 to version 4, because previously we were following the processes. Maybe there was 30 plus odd processes that we were following. And we're trying to align those processes with the business goals. But now what's happening is ITIL 4, it kind of ended these processes, and you have more flexibility to create your own processes within these methodology and management principles, concepts, and framework. The ITIL 4 also reflects different trends, upcoming trends in software development, such as Agile, that I'm going to talk about in depth, DevOps, Six Sigma, Lean. All of these fall within the service management area. So it's actually now taking a broader approach, right? Incorporating all of the other methodologies and then creating a set of best practices. So with an emphasis on creating value and deliverables and outcomes for customers. So if you like to take a more practical approach towards aligning to your business goals and objectives, so that, of course, the bottom line is gain profitability for your company and value eventually is delivered to your customers. And finally, ITIL 4 also aims to help companies with defining flexible, tailor-made models, similar to, let's say, service management approach that you can take a look at from within the digital age, like digital transformation you might have heard of, that provide service providers to create really a flexible model to meet the desired objectives. And one of the main advantages, by the way, of having this option of creating a flexible model is because technology is changing so rapidly and the underlying structure is also changing. So your goals are being changed and enhanced. So you need to kind of go along with this. And these practices and methodologies really help, and that's where ITIL 4 will jump in or kick in and help you with these set of practices as you implement them. So the main difference between the ITIL version 3 and 4, so ITIL 4 is not about new ideas about service management, right? And it should be really seen as an expansion of the previous ITIL framework. So it's not really a replacement, it's just a different approach. So essentially, both versions provide guidance on the same underlying principles. However, ITIL 4 takes a new approach to present this particular guidance. For example, ITIL version 3 contains, about 26 or so processes arranged along, let's say, the life cycle of service strategy and service design, transition, operation, and continual service improvement. This content, of course, stays, right? So it doesn't really go away. So you need to make sure that you keep up with these 26 or so processes, or at least have some knowledge of that. Whereas in ITIL 4, in addition, introduced additional guidance, just to ensure that all of us as practitioners understand not only the core principles and concepts such as value, but also ITIL 4 provides advice for integrating ITIL with other frameworks like DevOps, Agile, Lean, and Six Sigma, and so forth. So once again, we understand the core difference between the two ITIL versions, version 3 and version 4. Now, why do we need ITIL? It has become simply a de facto standard for IT service management, ITSM. IT managers over time have developed awareness for these services as a customer-driven approach. And this is really provided by this particular infrastructure library. For example, let's say things are moving towards DevOps, right? Cloud computing, where you have an end-to-end pipeline of your software development. With DevOps, you're creating an entire pipeline from start to finish, and the developers can essentially make a change from stage 1, and it will reflect in real time directly to the live customer. So it's more towards microservices, right? So the framework is integrating itself with the growing microservice architecture. The ITIL describes several processes organized around about 5 service life cycles. I'm going to talk about that later on so you can understand how this life cycle works. So the whole idea is for you to not only take a look at these concepts, but also ensure that you're able to apply them within your organizations, because technology is changing very rapidly, and that's normal with technology, right? In fact, the curve is growing higher and higher with these changes. So if you understand these basic concepts, no matter where you are in the technological curve, you can still implement these best practices and then ensure that you're delivering quality and your customer is happy as well as your company is profitable. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, post in the discussion area. I'll be glad to help and assist with this. Let's move to the next lesson.